Is 2025 a good year for you to purchase a property in Portugal? I sit down with a top mortgage broker for foreigners and we discuss things like interest rates, if you have to be here to go through the whole process, what numbers look like, and so many things that you'll need to know to get a mortgage in Portugal. Rafael, let's start with what documents banks will ask for.
Yes, Kaylee. The documents the banks in Portugal usually request are six: passports and NIFs for identification, the last six bank statements and pay stubs, the last 3 years of income tax. So, for example, in the US, the Form 1040. In England, for example, the P60 or self-assessment. They will also request your Equifax in the US or your credit report to show the debts that you have already in your country. And they also ask for an EVL, an employment verification letter, to show that you have a stable job abroad, okay? In case you have a company abroad, you can also make a self-declaration if it's the case.
What happens if someone is retired and not working? Can they still get a mortgage?
Of course, you just show your pension letter and your bank statements and we can work with that.
Okay. And do you have to be a resident of Portugal, have a visa to actually get a mortgage here?
This is a very, very important question. So you don't need to have a Portuguese passport or even a European passport to access credit here, or declare taxes in Portugal, or have a visa, or anything like that. You just have to prove, based on the documents we mentioned, that you have ability to pay the loan, okay? So based on that, the banks will give you pre-approvals. Then, knowing how much you can get with these banks, you can start searching for your property, knowing exactly how much you can get with the banks to secure a mortgage.
Now, are the rules different for foreigners getting a mortgage compared to a Portuguese person?
It's almost the same. The only difference is that for foreigners who have income tax abroad, who declare income tax abroad, you're going to buy it as a secondary house. The maximum loan to value will be 80%. Okay? If you are a resident, even as a foreigner, you can try for 85, maybe 90%, but it will depend on the appraisal report. Okay? But basically for foreigners, the maximum is 80%. Okay?
Okay. And what about age? I know this is a thing with mortgages. There's a certain age that is the cutoff. How does that work?
Yeah, the age limit here, Kaylee, is 75 years old. So for example, a person like me that is 51 years old, the bank will make 75 minus 51, so 24 years. They'll give me a mortgage of 24-year term. Okay? With a 20% down payment.
Okay.
But if I am able to put a little more in terms of down payments, let's say 25%, they can give me an extension. There is a product called 50 plus. So for people like me that has that is over 50 years old, they can give me an extension of 5 years. So I can get a 29-year term mortgage. Depending on the strategy, depending on the circumstances, this might be a good option. Summarizing, with this product 50 plus, you can get an extension of 5 years in case you are over 50 years old. Okay?
Well, that's good to know, because I think some people are concerned about the age aspect, but there's some wiggle room there. But mainly it's if you put more into the down payment.
Exactly. Sometimes it's good for the age groups of when you are in the 60s. So instead of getting 10, you can get a 15-year term. So the monthly payment will reduce a lot. Much better to get an approval, etc.
Okay. So we'll run through the process of what it looks like from start to finish in a minute, but I really want to talk about interest rates first. What are interest rates like here in Portugal right now?
Okay, the interest rates are very, very competitive right now. In Portugal right now, as of January 2025, we can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage for incredible 3.5%. And if you go with the fixed rate for 5 years, as they call it here, this will be equivalent for the ARM adjustable rate mortgage, the ARM 5.1 in the US. That is right now 7.3 in the US, and here is 2.7.
Wow.
So you can get 2.7 fixed for 5 years or 3.5 fixed for 30 years. Okay? So rates are very good, and if you compare, for example, with the US, you can get a 50% discount compared.
Okay. Yeah, that's really big. Yeah. And do you think that interest rates will maintain this throughout the year? Like maintain these numbers?
I think so. Maybe we can get a slightly reduction, but I think we are already in a very good level. This will probably maintain, maybe a slightly reduction, but this will probably be the best rates in the year.
Okay. So let's run through the process for someone who wants to get a mortgage. What does this whole process look like? What do they, from start to finish, what do they need to do?
When the client comes to me, I schedule a video meeting, a 1-hour video meeting, when I explain all the process in detail to the client. So I simulate mortgage scenarios, I calculate closing costs, talk about annual property taxes, etc. After the call, I send an email with a list of documents, these documents that we mentioned, with everything we need to shop the banks, okay? Once I receive the documents in 1 week, I can pre-approve the client. I'll give the client different proposals from different banks. If the client likes this, the client can start searching for the properties, okay? The proposals are valid for only 30 days, but you don't have to worry. You take your time, look for the property 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Once the client finds the property, they call me saying, Rafael, we find the property. It was listed for this amount. We put in an offer. Sellers accepted. So please move forward, for example, with Bank B, fixed rate, 30 years. And then I'll start the final process with this bank that will take 45, 60 days to complete. So summarizing, 1 week for the pre-approval, the pre-check, then the search. Then once you find the property, around 45, let's say 2 months for the whole process to complete with the bank chosen by the client.
What's the benefit of going with you, a mortgage broker, rather than going directly to a bank?
Oh, that's a very good question, Kaylee. Since I started working here in Portugal as a mortgage broker, I just work with foreigners. So I know this process very well. I can help the client from the beginning to end, helping the client to avoid any pitfalls in this process. For example, I can give you the best banks, the best branches and managers to assist the client. And this is very important. If the client goes directly to some banks or branches, the client probably will find there is not a very user to foreigners or to foreign papers who doesn't speak English very well, or even the worst of the things, give you an incorrect pre-approval. I remember a story that happened like some months ago. We had a client that made the quotation with us. We gave him 80%. He was a non-resident. And he said, Rafael, thank you very much for your assistance, but we found a manager that approved us for 90% for a non-resident. The rates are okay, etc. I said, this is a little strange, but if you really have the approval, feel free to go, okay? 1 month passed and he called me saying, Rafael, I have a problem. The final approval came with 70% only. I already paid 10% to the seller. Their lawyer didn't insert any clauses to protect me to get the reimbursement. I need to secure the mortgage, let's say in about a month, not to disobey the deadline of the contract. So we have to rush to secure the mortgage in time. We could make it, but this is the kind of stress and things that I don't want the client to pass.
Right.
With us, usually what you see is what you get. So I can give you the pre-approvals that will be exactly what you're going to have in the final approval.
Okay. Good to know. More security around it because you know how to navigate. Good. And then what are your fees and what does the client pay you?
This service is free of charge because I am a whole market mortgage broker. More than that, I'm a mortgage broker affiliated to the banks. I will give the client different proposals from these banks. The best bank for the client will be the best bank for me. And afterwards, if everything goes well, after the conclusion of the process, afterwards I will receive a success fee commission from the banks, okay?
Okay, so it's a win-win. The client doesn't have to pay you, but you go out and you find the best mortgage for them, and then at the end of the day, it's the bank who pays you.
Exactly. That's why I think there is no reason to go alone, even without knowing the process here in Portugal, that sometimes seems similar to the US process, but there are a lot of little details and little pitfalls that I can help you with.
All right, let's go with an example here. If someone has a property they want to purchase for 300,000, what does that look like?
In this example, Kaylee, 300,000 euros, the client has to come with a minimum of 20% down payment, so 60,000 in this case. And the closing costs will be first the IMT, call it the transfer tax. This will be around 12,000 euros. Okay, so by far the most expensive tax here. You have to pay the stamp duty for the loan and the property. This will be more 3,900, let's say 4,000, so 16,000 already. And you have also to pay the notary fees. On the closing, you have to pay the solicitor, the registration of your name in the books, etc. This will be more 1,000, 1,500, depending on the notary. Adding up everything, 17,000, 17,500, okay?
Yeah.
So
and that's on top of the 60,000.
Exactly, okay? So 60,000 for down payment, closing cost 17,000, 17,500, around that, okay? This will be like 5.7% of the closing cost. When the price goes higher, the percentage goes also higher, okay? So for properties for 1 million, this percentage goes much higher.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, so then what would someone's monthly mortgage be? What would they pay for a monthly mortgage then after all this is closed?
In this example of 300, so for example, for this 300,000, the bank will finance 240. Supposing a couple aged 45 and 42, so they can get a 30-year mortgage. If they go with the 3.5 fixed for 30 years, they will pay 1,100 per month.
Yeah.
okay, for that. If they choose the fixed rate for 5 years, they will start paying the first 5 years for 1,000 euros, okay? And then after 5 years, they can try to refix it at a better rate. So it depends on the strategy. If you prefer a precise cash flow for the future, you go with the 30-year. If you want to try to get a better rate in the future, you can start with the fixed rate for 5 years. They call it here the mixed rate.
Okay. Can someone do this fully remote, or do you have to be in Portugal for parts of this process?
Oh, for sure, Kaylee. Lots of clients do this remotely. You just have to have someone to represent you here, usually a lawyer, to help you with via power of attorney, of course, helping you with the promissory contract, inserting the clauses to protect you, opening the bank accounts, certifying all the documents, paying all these taxes that we mentioned, the IMT, the stamp duty, etc., the notary fees. The lawyer can also sign the deed for you, so on the closing day, the lawyer will sign the closing for you. So yeah, the process can be made totally remotely, okay? You just have to come to search and see and choose the property, and afterwards the agent, the lawyer, and me, we make the operational process, let's say, without the presence of the client. Let's say you just have to come and get the keys and the documents of the property in the end.
Great. So what's some advice you would give someone who's interested in purchasing in Portugal?
I think, Kaylee, that 2025 will be a great year for all foreigners, but especially for US clients, okay? Because of two reasons. First, the incredible mortgage rates. You can get today a fixed mortgage rate for 30 years for 3.5%, comparing with the US, as I said. I was seeing, as of January 2025, the US is 6.9, so almost close to 7%. Here we can get 3.5, so this is exactly half of it, okay? So half interest, so this is a 50% discount. And this is valid for all foreigners, of course. And if you choose the fixed rate for 5 years, the equivalent in the US will be the hybrid ARM, adjustable rate mortgages, 5.1, okay? There in the US is 7.3, and here you can get for 2.7.
Wow.
So it's a huge difference. You can get, instead of getting the first 5 years for 7.3, you have 2.7 here. So it's a huge difference. So I think this is a great opportunity. And the other thing is the exchange rate. You know, in the past, the euro-dollar parity was 1 to 1.2. And right now, the parity is very close to 1 to 1. So you can say that because of the strong dollar, things are 20% cheaper in Portugal.
Right.
So everything, assets, properties, cost of living. So we have two important things to take into consideration here. The exchange rates and the mortgage rates, okay, the interest rates.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rafael. And if you would like to get in touch with Rafael, then email me at info@expatseverywhere.com. And if you're looking for where to live in Portugal, then check out this video right here. Now, let's get moving.